This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Anyone and everyone in the Miami Dolphins nation, listen to me. Go watch the interview with Mike Silver and Mike McDaniel. It's an hour long, okay? Mike Silver, you can tell, has known Mike McDaniel forever, and they talk about it, and they talk about their experiences together and all that stuff. And McDaniel goes on to, tell the story on everything that went on. And he tells the story of how he saw the film for Tua and immediately was convinced that this was the guy. And remember, you all hear the story about making the tape and all those plays. Initially, he made a tape that had 100 and some plays, not the 700 one for Tua. He made one for the coaching staff and the front office and all of that. Because when he got here, he started going through the film and started to realize that Tua makes all these kind of throws that a lot of quarterbacks are actually afraid to make, and that he's actually really accurate at those throws. And he's talking about some where you're at the far hash and you're throwing to the other side of the field. And he says some quarterbacks would be nervous about that, and he isn't. And I kept seeing one throw after another that are really difficult to make in this league. And yet he continued to make it. And so that convinced me right away. And so what he did was when he addressed his coaching staff in the front office before he addressed Tua, right? And he talks about the story. I'm kind of ruining the interview for you a little bit, but he talks about how, when he had to address with Tua the whole situation, Tua was like guarded, like, okay, are you guys joking? Or because he's only been used to battering and badgering and all that. And so what he did was he ran the tape, but he also ran San Francisco plays through it at the same time. So he would show him a route that he would throw and then show it to him in a San Francisco way. And he said, this is how it should be run. This is how it should be open, this, that. Tua's response was he got more excited and more excited as the meeting went on. And by the end of the meeting, he goes, we got to get some playmakers. So, that kind of stuff. So he goes on to explain how he then makes the tape to explain to the front office people and to the coaching staff his vision and why he's convinced that Tua is the guy. Okay? And by the way, he barely slept that night, and he had to wait because he woke up really early in the morning, and he had to wait till he thought it was a reasonable time to call Chris Greer and all this because he was that excited, about it. And listen to the line he throws in that interview. He says, Tua's the best QB for our offense that we've ever had to coach. And he's been on a whole bunch of teams. Okay? And he goes, and then he caps it off by telling his coaching staff and his people that we are sitting on a gold mine. Does that sound like somebody that's going to get off the Tua bandwagon right now? No. And you can tell that story comes from the heart and that there's like brutal honesty involved in it because you can see and feel the exchange between him and Silver. And you can tell that McDaniel is way more comfortable with Silver than most people that would interview him. You know what I mean? He kind of lets his guard down and tells him exactly how the story went about and all that. I'm telling you, you want to check this out. Okay? If you actually listen, and this is something I've actually said before to Greer and to McDaniel, if you actually listen, you will notice that this is their QB. The problem is there's a bunch of you out there that you're not convinced. And then you had media members that weren't convinced, right? And then so the injuries cloud the whole thing. And so now you've muddied the water so much that you refuse to open your mind up. Because it's clear that the kid can play. I mean, we should be through that hurdle already. Okay? Again, it's a really good interview overall. And it's not because Silver is this amazing interviewer. He asked the right questions, but it's because McDaniel was really willing to open up. Okay? And you can see it in the interview. Like he wanted to get this off his chest and he wanted to talk about it. And I think it also gets to a point where I think McDaniel might be, getting to his wits' end about him trying to keep proving to people or telling people that he's committed to Tua because you're not committed to Tua. And that's the problem. You know what I mean? So those of you that aren't, we can't do anything about that. That's up to you to, convince yourself, or maybe you'll never be able to convince yourself, or maybe you think you never will convince yourself, or whatever. But it's just going to be hard to convince those kind of people because you've already gone through it over and over again. And when you watch that interview, you will go again like, okay, well, where are these people getting this? This guy, you can tell, is not moving from Tua at all. That's his guy. Now, if Tua obviously has a bunch of injuries and can't stay healthy, then nobody can do anything about it. As much as I would love to see Tua be the guy, he obviously won't be able to stay here if he's injury prone. Nobody's going to hang on to him. So this is a big year in that sense. But McDaniel is convinced that he's got the right player. Okay? Now we just got to hope that the other stuff works out for Tua and he's able to stay on the field and get it done. But it's a really good interview. You should check it out because I think McDaniel, does a marvelous job of opening up and telling you the story.